Timo, thank you for coming here tonight. It's a long distance from where you work most days. You're on the board of Swap, a Finnish idea making a huge impact in the US market. Could you tell us exactly what it is that Swap does?
Sure, Joshua, and thank you also for the band for the great intro. and so here's the thing: most of the clothes that we buy, we actually don't use. So we might use it for one time, second time, but then it gets forgotten in our closet, and we end up just throwing it in trash. So actually, if you look at the U.S. market, the average American throws away 70 pounds of clothing every year. So that means that 85% of clothes just go to trash, and only 15% are recycled one way or another. So that's just not a very smart way to use the limited resources on our planet. And there's, of course, we have services like eBay, marketplaces where you can trade items. So if you have a valuable item, it makes sense for you to do all the hassle to list it online and deal with the consumers purchasing it. Or then you could go to a brick and mortar consignment store, but they would only pay very little for the items that you have. So here's where Swap comes in, and so they have redesigned the whole process. So what you do is, if you have used items, you just put them in a box, and UPS comes and picks it up, and Swap will do everything for you. So they will take professional photographs, they will store it, and they will sell it, and they will do all the logistics. And for the buyer, it's the same kind of experience as going to a new item store. So it's radically different from anything you've seen in the online marketplaces such as eBay. And so people love it. So now we have 1.5 million items in stock. So that makes us the largest consignment store in the US. And we've been experiencing double-digit growth, 15% per month growth. So the company is doing actually exceptionally well.
I don't have many questions. You've pretty much answered everything I had written down here. I mean, it might be kind of foreign to a lot of people here tonight. The US market's a different place, right? You know, a lot of their waste actually still goes to landfills. I know that in Sweden, landfilling is quite low. But like Australia, where I come from, landfilling is still it's the only place to go for your waste. So one of the big benefits here environmentally is that there's less going to landfill because it's back in the economy, essentially. Is that kind of a fair assessment?
Well, that's absolutely a fair assessment. So you can think of it this way. If we are able to create a market for used items, and also inexpensive items. Now, this is actually the biggest bulk of items would be clothing between $5 and $10 per item, where it makes no sense to ship them individually or sell them and post them online. So, and this is actually the biggest bulk of the market. And so if we're able to crack the code there, let's say we can double the lifespan of each consumer product. What does that mean? That means we need half of the products to begin with. So essentially we're cutting production of new items, and that might not be good for the production-oriented economies in the world, but it's definitely good news for the planet.
Well, I mean, I must say, my parents were the coolest generation, and there's probably some people here that age. I mean, I just want to wear their leftover stuff anyway half the time, so that's just my little way of looking at the world. So, I mean, these are great numbers for Swap. Oh, g'day, Big Air. How you doing? Yeah, you good? Good. These are great numbers for Swap. They're growing. They're in a big market where what they're offering is actually in demand, and there are people shopping. So what can we expect for Swap's future from here on?
Well, you're absolutely right that it is a big market. If you look at the US only, and only clothing, we have estimated that the potential for second-hand is somewhere around 100 billion annually. So that is the quantity of the opportunity, and And what swap.com is doing right now, we are clearly already the largest online consignment store, and the online consignment space is growing rapidly. So we want to secure the category leadership position in this market, which means that eventually I would love to see swap.com growing independently, being IPO'd at some point of time. On the way, it could be that some of the larger consumer brands in the market, such as Amazon, might be interested.
They've got a habit of doing that, right?
That's right. But then again, the goal definitely must be to become the category leader, and that is the only way for some of the bigger players to get interested in the first place. But actually, the number one goal is to do an IPO somewhere in the future for swap.com.
Excellent. So from the audience, are there any questions about what Swap is doing? This gentleman right here. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that one behind you quickly. Sorry, we'll get straight to you next.
Well, how are you taking care of the hygienical factor when you use clothes?
Well, everything currently cannot be done by robots, so there is human labor involved. So the hygienics is actually that whenever a piece of garment comes into the process, there will be an expert that will look through it very closely. So if there's any visual, and they actually do smell the garment as well. So if there's anything at all, an odor, a small stain, just a single small wrinkle somewhere, or if it's ripped somehow, it will just be cancelled. It will not be accepted in the as a sales item at all. So that is one of the parts where you do need some human labor.
And so it was this gentleman here as well, really quickly, yeah.
So when will be the swap.com will be listed?
Well, there are no time plans, or we haven't announced anything, and it hasn't been decided. So the key goal right now is to build the company, grow the company to become a very large player in online consignment, to be the category leader. And only after we are growing and being profitable, I think will be time for the IPO.
Any more questions from the audience? Anyone out there? Oh, you have a follow-up question. You're hungry, aren't you? Are you just hungry?
So we have to wait for what Bigge says.
Oh, this is the secret fifth step.
Yeah. What Bigge says.
I wasn't here. I don't know what Bigge said.
Well, there's some things we can't reveal right now, I guess, is the answer to that question. But
yeah, that's right.
Stay tuned is usually a good response, right? We have a newsletter.
But it is like I want to stress the point that whether it's an IPO or a trade sale eventually, none of those things will happen in any company if you don't strive to become the leader in your market. So you have to have the capability to independently conquer your market, and only then will you be maybe acquired, or you can do an IPO later on. Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing for investors, right?
Sure, but that is the
being number one first and then going for an IPO. It'd be better if better than the other way around, right? So thank you for coming on stage tonight.
Thank you.
And I think the audience has had a pretty good introduction to swap.com. If you have any other questions, please grab Timo and have a chat. Thank you.
I'll be here. Thank you.